Ro Khanna, remember Ro Khanna? Have you heard rumors of this guy? You may or may not be aware. One of the main architects in the release of the Epstein files, which of course we're all still processing and dealing with. He's gotten himself in hot water with the worst people alive. Ro Khanna is saying what is objectively true, but nobody is brave enough to say. And for this, I'm actually willing to give him a ton of respect. Ro Khanna is pointing out that we need to raise taxes. Massively. He's been fighting on Twitter over the past couple of days with a bunch of Silicon Valley fascists and pedophiles who are really, really, really upset with the idea of a 1% tax on billionaires, a state tax in California to pay out, the dwindling Medicaid funds. He could have said this years ago. Yeah, but like nobody's been willing to say it. The idea of a wealth tax or of raising income tax or whatever, nobody's willing to say it. Nobody's been willing to say it. People are insanely cowardly. Everyone's terrified of the wealthy leaving, which, if the wealthy leave, just, arrest them. You. We do not allow civilization to end just because, a few dozen people in the United States are terrified of having double-digit billions rather than triple-digit billions. Jesus Christ. Seize their assets. It is unironically the moderate position. Why stop with billionaires? Why stop at 5%? Keep going, Ro, keep going. It's 1% a year for 5 years so Californians can have health insurance. Love it, but let's do more. Let's take 10% for millionaires and do better health insurance and a train from LA to Fresno and groceries. Da-da-da-da-da. Taking people's assets after they've already paid 53% income tax on them. You haven't. Income tax is not enough. I'm not really prompting the full discussion. Ro Khanna posted that he is interested in a 1% over 5 years billionaire tax, 1% every year for 5 years. And now a bunch of California-based billionaires like Peter Thiel are talking about leaving the state. They're being very loud about it, which is it's insane because it used to be that if a populist politician was talking about taxing the uber wealthy would conspire quietly behind closed doors about how they're going to sink the guy's campaign. And now a bunch of these psychopaths, they are openly talking about getting him primaried, dumping tons of money into the race to guarantee that Ro Khanna does not win on re-election. No shame. Being totally out of touch with the moderate faction of his base, Khanna has devolved into being an obnoxious jerk. At least that makes voting him the out all the more gratifying. Tan, a wealthy venture capitalist and founder of the California venture capital fund Initialized Capital, responded to Casado's rant with a simple message. Time to primary him. Count me in. Happy to be involved on any level. Look at this shit, man. This is 100% going to backfire. I don't think Silicon Valley oligarchs realize how much the country hates them. People hate them much more than they hate wealthy old money types. They're so obnoxious. They're so socially incompetent. They're so loud. Remember how all of these freaks were screaming from the top of their lungs that the government needed to immediately bail out the Silicon Valley Bank back when that went under 2 years ago? The most base thing about this proposition is that the tax includes a tax on unrealized gains, which we need to implement nationwide. Income tax is worthless. It would make sense if the way billionaires got their money was by making money, but they don't. They just sit on hundreds of billions of dollars of unrealized capital gains that they never take out, and they borrow money loaned against the value of their unrealized assets. Elon Musk doesn't pay taxes. What are unrealized gains? Right now, you only pay taxes on the value of your stock assets when you liquidate those assets. So if, say, for example, you're a CEO, and as part of your CEO payment package, you're given $20 million in stock in the company that you run, you are not taxed on that $20 million worth of stock. If it goes up to $30 million, you're not taxed on it. If it goes up to $40 million, you're not taxed on it. You're only taxed on it when you sell the stock and turn it into actual hard cash. But nobody ever does that. The only people who sell stock are small-time day traders, okay? The people who have real money just sit on their stock, on their unrealized assets, and they leverage it to borrow money from banks or, opportunistic lenders, and they use that money, which they're not taxed on because it's a loan. Are you taxed on it when you leverage it for a loan? No. I'm dumb. How do they pay back the loan then? Well, usually they pay back the loan in the same way by transferring stock. Like, or they take out a bigger loan. But in a lot of cases, you can either like infinitely roll up debt, or you can just shuffle stock around. But if it's never liquidated, it never becomes taxable. Shouldn't that be considered fraud technically? No, that's how the system is meant to work. Like it is a system that guarantees that once you have a certain amount of money, it's almost impossible to lose money. Once you have enough money that you can just sit on your stocks and allow them to accumulate in value, you're basically guaranteed to ride that wave and make more money forever. And this is what's happened. Like the market has become more and more K-shaped to the extent that, like, if your wealth is not coming from assets, your share of the economic value, your share of the wealth supply is going down. And if you do have enough money that you can just coast on those assets, your share goes way up and has gone way up. Remember, there are a bunch of people now who are worth multiple hundreds of billions of dollars. 10 years ago, there were none. This is a completely modern phenomena. The amount of the trillions of dollars that have shifted upwards, sitting unrealized, unused, untaxed in a dragon's hoard. The only way around this is we need to tax unrealized gains. There is no way around. I'm saying this in the most like emphatic way possible. Our civilization will end due to the over-financialization of the economy, unless we are willing to tax unrealized gains or otherwise restructure the economy in a way that prevents money from being hoarded in that way. But like all of this cannot survive the way the money is being siphoned. Letting him finish his run-on sentence, then cat throw. No cat throw. Money should expire after a year. That's literally the point of tax. Wait, do they have to liquidate their gains to pay for the tax, or how would it work? They only have to pay taxes when they sell the shares. Did you see Matt Iglesias defend? Yeah, I saw. First, they came for the billions. It's time to take a bold stand in defense of America's off-the-line billionaire class. Yeah. It's Matt Iglesias. Vaush just say wealth tax? Well, I just want to be clear that, like, wealth tax has to include unrealized gains, because there are versions of a wealth tax that don't. Wait, he wasn't joking? No, it's Matt Iglesias. What are you talking about? Is he joking? Cap the inheritable wealth? The problem is not inheritable wealth. The problem is the stock market. The stock market is a machine that transfers wealth up into the hands of an incredibly tiny group of economic elites. You know, it's not like whether or not the money goes back to the state when they die does not matter. Because when the money is reintroduced into the system, it'll funnel back up again in exactly the same way. The new game in town isn't even the stock market, it's private equity. Private equity is just the executioner. Like the prominence of private equity. Okay, can I entertain you guys with a little story? It's not the first time you've heard it, okay? You know how Japan is known for making lots of cute little crafts? This is something they're known for. If you go to Japan, or hell, just like look up stuff in the country, all over the place in Japan, they make stuff, right? It sounds general. It is general. But if you want a high quality version of just a household thing, they've got it in Japan. They like making stuff. They make a lot of stuff. Why do they make so much stuff? The Japanese economy is pretty robust. There's a lot of money moving around. They have a culture of craftsmanship, sure, but it's not just them. Basically, every culture on Earth had a culture of craftsmanship up until the Industrial Revolution, right? Like, everyone did, because everyone had to craft. Why did they keep making things when we don't? And we don't, by the way. America is overrun with financialization, chain restaurants, and big box slop. Low quality, factory produced bullshit. Why don't we make things? The only thing we make is weapons? That is true. We do produce a lot of top quality firearms here in the United States. Why does this happen? Well, Long story short, and I'm really simplifying here, okay? The Japanese economy had a crash in the 1990s. And all of a sudden, all of the businesses of Japan, which up until that point had been making oodles of money by borrowing money and then borrowing more money to pay the initial loan and then doing that over and over and over again. Borrow money, invest it, get returns on the investment, pay off the loan, borrow more money, da da da. Basically, it was very cheap to borrow money, and they did it a lot, and they invested it a lot, and they got a lot of money from it. And then the economy crashed. Every Japanese business was now in debt with no way of easily paying it back. There was no longer an easy investment for them to make that would get them the returns they needed to pay off that debt. We're talking about a cataclysm. Like in Japan in the 1990s, it was like 2008 for us, but worse. It was mostly localized to the Japanese economy, but it was rough over there. Imagine everyone's making money, and then one day everyone wakes up and every business all around the country realizes, holy shit, we owe like 10 billion yen and we have literally no way of paying it back. Like every business now has negative money. It's really bad, right? So what do? Well, they saved money, they scrimped, right? Over time, many of these businesses were able to pay back the enormous debt they had saddled up in the lead up to the crash. But as a consequence of that crash, Japanese businesses are, for the most part, super, 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 super unwilling to borrow money. They don't want to because they remember. A lot of the people who work at those companies were employees at those companies when the crash happened. Like, it's still in the cultural memory. So as a consequence of the fact that their economy is now resistant to over-financialization, that is to say, the money in Japan is not being exchanged for financial reasons. They're not doing it in this scheme of like borrow, invest, pay off the loan, borrow, invest, right? The money they're making is through regular transactions, goods and services. Because the people and the businesses there are unwilling to engage in those financial schemes, their stock market, relatively weak compared to the amount of money flowing around in the economy, but their economy produces a disproportionate number of actual goods and services. Like, how do you make money in Japan if you're not willing to engage in financialization? Well, you produce goods and services, right? That makes sense, doesn't it? The problem is, over here in America, there's no money to be made in producing goods or services. The margins on running businesses have become incredibly tight. In Tokyo, there are 1 billion small businesses, Not literally 1 billion, but literally over 1 million. Small family-owned businesses. You want to sell something? You open up a shop. You don't get many customers? That's fine. Operating costs are low, right? Yeah, low overhead. There's a robust market. People are spending their money on goods and services. Therefore, a lot of the money's flowing around, right? Relatively high velocity of money, at least at that ground level, because more and more of the money is being reserved for those day-to-day transactions rather than those top-end financial schemes. I'm not saying that all the money in our economy is a zero-sum game, like $5 out of one guy's pocket means somebody else is getting 5 or whatever, but it's not an infinity-sum scheme. Does that make sense? Like, if more and more of the money is being reserved for that financial bullshit, there's less of it going to use around here. In America, we're dealing with the exact opposite problem, right? The problem we're dealing with right now is that the margins are really bad for most goods and services. And this comes down to a lot of stuff, right? The way our economy is structured, the way we've built our cities. But a lot of it is just a lot of people don't really have the money or impetus to go out and spend at local businesses, Our cities aren't that walkable. A lot of people don't have the pocket change to do it. It didn't used to be like this. The average American was poorer back in the 1950s, but spent more of their money at small businesses. Now people spend their money at Walmart and Target. And where does that money go? Not back into the community, I can tell you that much. That money goes whoop, back into the big financial scheme. You get me? When you buy from Temu or Shein, or you buy from Walmart or any place where the money is not being spent locally, that money is being siphoned off into a big, big machine where some of it is going to be converted into the financial industry, where it will stay. Because money you spend at Walmart, some of it will end up getting financialized, but money that is financialized is not trickling back down to you. When you buy shit from Walmart, the profits from the company in some large abstract after a million transactions eventually end up being part of a broader portfolio. That money goes up, but the financialization does not in any way enrich you. And as a consequence, it's getting really tough to run American businesses, you know? And a bunch of them are closing down. And that's where private equity comes in. Private equity is the plague, it's the fungus that consumes the corpse of the American economy. As time goes on, more and more classic American businesses and brands and so on are going to go under, and they will be consumed by the last organism in the natural life cycle of the American business cycle, right? Like the very last one, which is when a business can no longer operate at a profit, it gets consumed and liquidated by parasites from Wall Street. And that money that the private equity company gets in the liquidation of that firm then goes into the financialization. You understand? It is the executioner. It is the death knell. It will come for everything. Even businesses you thought couldn't possibly go under. In your lifetime, you will see businesses you thought were rock steady, stuff you thought couldn't Sears, Macy. I mean, we're talking like big, big firms here, you know? They will go under, they will be eaten, and everything they're worth will be liquidated and it will be moved on up. The only way out of this scheme is the definancialization of the economy. What happens after? Well, what happens after is just a worsening of what's happening now, which is that the economy used to be about feeding and clothing people, right? Like the economy was about the exchange of goods that humans used, spices, furniture, housing. But now that's only a portion of the economy, and it's not the profitable portion. The profitable portion of the economy is the financial market. The unprofitable portion of the economy is trying to make goods and services for people. Eventually, the goods and services part of the economy will represent just a tiny vestigial portion of where the money actually goes. We will have low quality goods, a low selection of them, and somehow, even though everyone buys from them, the big box stores that sell us these goods are going to be on the brink of financial ruin. There will be no money in it because there will be no money to spend there. Everything will be getting worse all the time. When you put it that way, it really feels like America's having its death of empire Rome moments. I just want to make it clear that what I'm describing right now is not like a leftist theory. This is an economic certainty if we are unwilling to do something about either the fact that we don't tax unrealized capital gains or the financialization of the economy. It's a mathematical fact. It's not a wacky analysis or an interpretation. We have data on what is happening in the economy, and there are very, very, very obvious lines. The money supply, the velocity of money, where it's going, how much of it is sitting in Wall Street, and you can just see where these lines are going. It can't literally always go up because as one of these lines goes up, another proportional line goes down, and that line can't hit zero. You can't actually have an economy where no money is diverted towards the enterprise of feeding and clothing and housing people. You can't actually, it's not possible. Liberal economists have been talking about it for decades, saying the same thing. 100%, yeah. I think we'll eventually correct away from this course, but like in the meantime, there's going to be a lot of suffering. I do want to give a lot of credit to Ro Khanna for being brave enough to talk about a tax on unrealized capital gains while representing the district that has seen the greatest increase in unrealized capital gains ever in any point in human history. Nowhere outside of San Francisco has there ever been such an obscene swelling of stockholder wealth. It's unprecedented. Santa Clara, San Jose, really? Okay, it's in the area. You. And he's like arguing with the NFT people here, you know? Well, I guess this one's actually agreeing with him. My manufacturing company got bought by PE and sold the land that Facebook's built on. Nice. I always get a headache from my financial rambling. Crystal Ball is completely right on this, and good for her. TBH, he's trying to save your asses. You're too dumb to see it. The bottom 50% of Americans hold only 2.5% of the wealth. Do you really think this is a healthy or sustainable situation? Roe calls the wealth tax an anti-revolution tax, and he's absolutely correct. FDR did the same thing. Consistently, oligarchs are too stupid to realize that when things get really bad, they're like one bad day away from being liquidated in the town square. Like, actually. It has happened before in many civilizations at many points in time. To varying extents, it has happened. These idiots are worth billions and billions of dollars, and they're actually willing to risk that. Part of this, I really think, is the problem of new money versus old money. A lot of old money people were smart enough to realize that they should stay modest and culturally integrated, right? Like a lot of the wealthy people over on the East Coast in the 18th and 19th centuries, not to say they weren't shitheels, of course they were, but they tried to be like pillars of the community. Oh, name that library after me. Here, this arts festival, whatever. Look at me, I'm socially useful. I'm cultured. I'm polite. I'm talented. Da da da. I'm just better than you, and that's why I deserve this position. These people are worth a million times as much as the East Coast, robber barons were, and they're insufferable. They're stupid and loud. They have no respect for the society they live in. Oh, listen, all I can tell you is this, okay? I bet you that the average Silicon Valley unrealized capital gains head nowadays talks about leaving the United States for tax reasons much more often than Rockefeller ever did. Like, I bet you that there used to be a little bit more national pride. Leave to where? I don't know, Europe? What they don't realize is that neither side of the aisle likes these people. The only reason the right pretended to like Elon was because Elon got really racist really fast. The right does not like the fact that Silicon Valley is a bunch of like degenerate West Coast Indian ultra wealthy people with no social skills or talent. Just look at how they treat Vivek. He's a big stock market foreigner guy. They freak out over him. They hate his ass. They do not like this new money, this swaggering, totally inept, wears a techie polo shirt. Here you go. Patagonia vest ass. They hate these people. And the left hates them. Nobody likes them. Nobody likes these people. They have their only defense is their money, and eventually that runs out. Aren't they building an island near Honduras? I cannot overstate to you how little their pathetic little doomsday bunkers will protect them if things actually come to a heel. There's no escaping humans. Not to mention the fact that they'd still be relying on supply chains off their little bunkers or whatever. Like, every castle ever built in human history is vulnerable to a siege. That was the point of a siege. You just starve them out. But also, castles were castles with a standing army. They really think that like an island bunker with some gun turrets is going to stop people if shit really goes down? Absolutely not. At least feudal lords actually had social contracts with their subordinates to integrate them into hierarchy. We really do have like the worst run aristocracy. We have the most incompetent aristocrats. Like, Ro Khanna is retweeting this. He's retweeting the sentiment of, you idiots, you need to be taxed. Civilization is collapsing and they will come for your head if things get bad enough. Ro Khanna 2028? Well, nothing else matters unless we can do a wealth tax. Like, unironically, this matters more than social progressivism. I don't think that anything needs to be compromised for anything else, but I do want more people on the left to be able to talk about this because I think it's too talked about in liberal circles, right? And I'm part of this. I'm part of this problem because for years I would say stuff like, well, we just need to, take money. We need to tax the billionaires for equality, and we need to divert money away from the military industrial complex and put it towards healthcare. But I didn't realize like how skewed the game was. You know what I mean? Comparatively speaking, I was talking about fighting over peanuts, right? The real treasure trove is in the wealth tax, in the unrealized capital gains tax. More people need to talk about this. And it's not just we need to do this to make our healthcare system more woke or whatever. It will all end if we don't. Soon, too. Not like a long, long, long time in the future. What happens after it ends? Clavicular was right. After it ends, the only thing that will matter is social worth and the halo effect. And the only way to secure that for yourself is to be 6'6" with like a strong jawline. How would you do a wealth tax? Aggressively.